What's up, Final fans? It's the Warrior of Hype, and in this video, I'm predicting where Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will end by breaking down each chapter of the game. This will be under the assumption that Rebirth will follow the same standard that Remake set with 18 chapters. But what makes this video interesting is how I draw parallels between each game's chapters, taking what was given in Final Fantasy VII Remake and persuasively predict Rebirth by using the original game's main through line. And by the time that I get to chapter 18, we'll have a pretty good idea of where it could end. So let's begin with the opening cutscene, which I believe is right there in the Rebirth reveal trailer, tracking a white feather from the sky to Zack carrying Cloud to Midgar. This matches the opening of Remake's bird's eye perspective entering Midgar, and a variation of this was shown in the reveal trailer for Remake. So two reveal, the parallels. It's paralleling. I think a really cool CG cinematic of Cloud and Sephiroth battling the green dragon would just be awesome. And then a zoom in on Calm N's window, which is showing the party watching the Shinra news broadcast, which confirms my suspicion of this all being Shinra propaganda, showing the party dead. And then they start talking about Sephiroth. Cloud explaining his history with Sephiroth, setting up the flashback at Calm. Chapter 1 begins the flashback at Calm on that day 5 years ago. Chapter 1 of Remake does an excellent job of setting the stage. The Midgar portion of the overall Final Fantasy VII story is very much Shinra focused. So in Remake, Barrett explains how they are literally sucking the life from the planet. You blow up one of their reactors, and then you see how evil they truly are, because they would go as far as making the devastation even more grand to make it a full-on terrorist attack and pinning it on Avalanche. And Cloud's mind glitches out. There's a black feather that falls down. What the heck is going on? So Chapter 1 of Rebirth will aim to do the same service by setting the stage. This time, the focal point is right there in the reveal trailer. What is Sephiroth's endgame? What is real? And what is fiction? Chapter 1 of Rebirth will show us what motivates Sephiroth during the flashback at Calm. Cloud will be the ever unreliable narrator telling a story that everyone knows all too well to be untrue. Everyone being us, the player. You sprinkle in a few flashes of what actually happened to actively contradict Cloud's story to make him question himself, as Sephiroth is probably in his ear and his head, making him question himself as he tells the story. So these questions of what is Sephiroth's endgame, what is real and what is fiction, are what I believe will be at the core of Rebirth. And what better way to set all of that up than with the nucleus of all Final Fantasy VII mystery, the Nibelheim incident. Gameplay-wise, in Remake, you are guided through the chapter by Avalanche. Barrett joins you midway through. Now, Tifa would play a similar role in Rebirth that Jessie had in Remake by guiding Cloud, the player, up Mount Nibel to the reactor in Chapter 1 of Rebirth. Aesthetically, Remake and Rebirth's Chapter 1 would have a reactor and fire. Chapter 2, the Chocobo Farm and the Mithril Mines. In Remake, Sephiroth torments Cloud with visions during Chapter 2. I wonder if he'll kind of do the same here as they're on their way through the Mithril Mines. He could make Cloud question the story he told at the Calm Inn, keeping him distracted and disconnected, because Cloud is not fooling players anymore, especially with Crisis Core Reunion re-releasing last year, reminding players of the true events. Even Tifa questions it in the trailer when talking to Aerith, and Aerith questions Tifa why she is asking her. Another line of dialogue was Sephiroth telling Cloud, "You know I killed her, so who is she?" I think both of those quotes come from Chapter 2. This would also parallel with Chapter 2 in Remake, which was meant to inject a copious amount of mystery and intrigue into what should have already been familiar to fans of the original game. After the sequence of Sephiroth and the Whispers intervening in Cloud and Aerith's meeting during Remake's Chapter 2, the pace picks up as it's a fight to the getaway train. The party leaves calm, and it may just be a dash across the marshes to get away from the Midgar Zalem. You got getaway vibes going on there, paralleling each other. The cooldown in Remake is reuniting with Avalanche on the train for a cutscene about what the next step is. In Rebirth, the party will discover what their next step is in the Mithril Mines after an encounter with the Turks, after Elena lets it slip. They gotta go to Junon. Chapter 3. Meeting Yuffie and Junon, the side quest hub. In Remake, Tifa joins the party in this chapter, so this aligns well with bringing in a new character such as Yuffie to the party. This also makes sense with what we've seen in the trailer, as she is with the party on the cargo ship. So she must join the party either in the Junon Woods area, as she could be found in the original game, or perhaps in Junon Undercity, or even Fort Condor if that location is open for visiting at this point in the game. After all, she really did enjoy that Fort Condor board game, and it just would make a whole lot of sense for her to take refuge there after the events of Intermission. Sector 7 Undercity is the side quest hub in Remake's Chapter 3. Junon's Undercity could be the Rebirth equivalent. Also, Sector 7 has an area outside of town for clearing out monsters. Maybe Rebirth will utilize the large open zone outside of Junon to hunt monsters and take care of other various things for the citizens. We have already seen this area in the trailer, so perhaps that secondary objective marker is a side quest that was accepted in the Junon's Undercity. In Remake, you found cats for a little girl who lives in the slums. This is the best side quest ever. In Rebirth, Priscilla is a little girl who lives in the slums of Junon, so I imagine we'll be helping her in a side quest or two. The next story beat was with Johnny and saving him, or sparing his life, or almost killing him, or... But point is that it was the only real quest with action in it, and it showed that Cloud was willing to take a life, if not for Tifa's interference. It could mirror reflection, nicely with Cloud saving a life, saving Priscilla in Chapter 3 of Rebirth. Battling Bottomswell in Rebirth could provide somewhat of a similar level of action as fending off the Shinra troops in Remake. In Remake's Chapter 3, it ends with Cloud going back to an inn to rest. He's intercepted by a late-night mission request from Jessie. In the original, Cloud goes back to the Junon Undercity Inn to rest. As he dreams, a voice tells him to ask Tifa about Nibelheim 5 years ago. Something doesn't add up. When he wakes up, he does ask, but Tifa quickly avoids the question and says something is going on outside. I suppose this could mirror with how Jessie pulls him along to the next thing, or how Chapter 3 of Remake also had a moment with Cloud and Tifa talking about the past. Chapter 4. The Junon Parade. Remake's Chapter 4 starts with a minigame, the motorcycle chase to the upper city. If Rebirth does faithfully stick to the original silly way of reaching the upper city of Junon, well, Cloud will hitch a ride on a dolphin, and that dolphin's name is Mr. Dolphin, as it leaps several stories into the sky. Come on, man. We gotta have it. We gotta have it. I want this to be included. I want them to find a way for them to do this without it being ridiculous. Or maybe it is ridiculous and I love it anyway. I want them to do it. So do you think they'll do it? That's a little side note in the comments. Please let me know. Do you think they're going to have Mr. Dolphin in this game? Alright, regardless, in both scenarios, you travel from Undercity to Upper City at the start of Chapter 4. Once arriving in the Upper City, Cloud must infiltrate Jessie's father's room. In Rebirth, Cloud will infiltrate Rufus' inauguration parade. So you got some, incognito stuff going on in both games. Parallels. I think the guy in the red could end up being Roach in Rebirth's retelling of this sequence and possibly assist Cloud in getting in on the cargo ship. It would make a whole lot of sense for there to be someone on the inside. I'm sure I'll go into more detail in a future video with thoughts on what to expect in Junon's potential story and Rebirth and all that other stuff, so I'll leave it here for now. But this does echo Remake's story structure, as Chapter 4 is when you meet Roach. In Remake, following another encounter with Roach, this time sword combat, which ends with him assisting Cloud, by the way, just as he could assist Cloud at the Junon parade, there's a falling action of going back to the Undercity, in which you will speak with Tifa and then wake up to battle Whispers. In my mind, I think Zack will be the new Whispers of Rebirth. The cause of disrupting the flow of the original story. So I'll add, before boarding the cargo ship in Rebirth, maybe Cloud will have a vision of Zack, or maybe it's just a cutscene of his adventure from returning to Midgar, then cut back to Cloud as they board the ship to end the chapter, just as they board a train to end the chapter of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Chapter 5, the cargo ship. I think the cargo ship can carry a full chapter's worth of content, and some story beats do mirror each other very well. In Remake, an alert is sounded for unidentified passengers on the train. In the original, an alert is sounded for a suspicious stowaway spotted on the cargo ship. Heidegger has a lot of screen time in Remake. He's in there for a lot there in Remake's Chapter 5. Well, guess what? Heidegger is also on the cargo ship. And there's also a moment where Barrett sees Heidegger and Rufus talking, and you don't get to hear what they're talking about. So maybe Rebirth will let us be that fly on the wall and kind of get an idea of what they're saying there, you know, firsthand. The Crab Warden is the boss battle of Remake's Chapter 5. I'm sure Genova will be the boss battle of Rebirth's Chapter 5. Chapter 6, the Costa del Sol and Mount Coral. The party has a date with a reactor in Remake and Rebirth. Rebirth's reactor being Mount Coral's. In the original, you pass by this reactor at this point in the game, so I'm assuming they're going to do the same, but maybe there's a little bit more story context and dialogue going on as they pass by. Mount Coral features environmental puzzles where platforms will need to be raised and lowered. In Chapter 6, Light the Way and Remake, platforms needed to be raised and lowered. Don't look down, Barrett, because crossing the extremely high railroad bridges will be a callback to Barrett's fear of heights brought up in the same numbered chapter in Remake. Chapter 7, North Coral, Gold Saucer. This one would be a mirrored reflection of A Trap is Sprung in Remake's Chapter 7. You start at the bottom of the reactor and you fight your way to the top, where the party is led right into a trap. Well, in Rebirth, you start at the top of the Gold Saucer, and then you're framed for a massacre in which will have you sent to the ground level desert prison. Similar walking into a trap kind of vibes here. Chapter 8, Coral Prison, gets a whole chapter all to itself to really focus in on Dyne and some of the side quests being in the desert prison. You have Aerith join your party at this point in Remake. Kate Sith joined the party. Chapter 9, Gold Saucer and winning the approval of Dio to leave. Hey, what do you know? Cloud had to win the approval of the trio in Wall Market. It parallels. Wall Market in Remake was clearly evoking that same extravagant spectacle. Wall Market has a battle coliseum where Gold Saucer has a battle square, and no way we can forget about Chocobo Racing. Leaving the Gold Saucer is a perfect opportunity for a side quest hub, just as this chapter was in Remake. Now that you have the Dune Buggy, you can run some errands for Dio to fully earn your freedom. Perhaps he wants you to travel to Gongaga. You help some town folks there, and you get to strap in for a Zack-centric sequence. And Cosmo Canyon. Dun, 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 dun. Finally, some answers to the larger happenings of the Final Fantasy VII Remake story. The Final Fantasy VII Remake story. I'm talking about answers to the Edge of Creation, Zack's fate, why does Aerith have future memories, things like this, whispers. What is going on there? Maybe Bugenhagen can explain what happened on the highway at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think Bugenhagen will have a lot of answers for us, but I also think he's going to raise a lot of questions that will propel the party forward onto the next thing as they chase Sephiroth, as they hunt down Sephiroth. These revelations are about Rebirth's main focal point. Again, being Sephiroth's endgame and what is real and what is fiction. In Remake, the revelations of its focal point being Shinra came from Don Corneo, that Shinra planned to drop the plate on Sector 7. Again, this was propelling the party forward with a new purpose, with a refound purpose to get to the next thing. Chapter 10, Cave of the Gi. Cave of the Gi just equals sewers from Remake, am I right? I would like to see Gi Natak at the start of the chapter, just like Abzu was at the start of the chapter. I mean, the pacing flows so good at this point. I don't know what to tell you guys. The Cave of the Gi, the sewers, they got water, they're underground. The sewers got nasty water. The Cave of the Gi got that flowing bloody water. I don't know. If you got the teen rating, I doubt they would allow the blood river if they didn't allow blood trails. Maybe it's got red lights and it's making the water look red. Maybe it's lava. We get some answers though. Chapter 11, Nibelheim and the mansion. I mean, just this stuff is lining up too well, right? I mean, this stuff lines up too well. Haunted in Chapter 11 of Remake, recapturing those spooky vibes. Nibelheim's town itself feels eerie because Cloud and Tifa remember it burning down. How is it in perfect condition? And with the black-cloaked men stumbling and mumbling, reunion! Yeah, definitely creepy vibes. And don't forget the Shinra mansion filled with, you got people swinging on giant blades that hang from the ceiling. You got spooky pumpkin things floating in the air. You got a dude sleeping in a coffin downstairs. And Mount Nibel is just a spooky mountainous path anyways. And with the iconic boss battle against the Materia Keeper to finish out the chapter, it's very similar to Eligor at the end of Remake's Train Graveyard. In Chapter 12, Rocket Town. In Remake, Chapter 12 was literally a fight for survival. The stakes were extremely high. So how does this translate into Rebirth? Well, the next step is Rocket Town to meet Cid. And it may not be high octane from start to finish, but this chapter will end with the team making a daring escape from Rocket Town on the Tiny Bronco, like they did from the collapsing plate in Midgar. Both would be equally forgivable if one were to pish their drawers. This time, Cid confronts Rufus while Cloud and company confront Palmer, and Palmer confronts a truck. And then the party flies away on the Tiny Bronco and then is shot down, landing in the shallow waters nearby Wutai. And that brings me on to Chapter 13, Wutai. Definitely not the same emotional impact of Remake's Chapter 13, but this could be where Yuffie seizes the opportunity of being so close to Wutai to steal the party's materia. A whole chapter dedicated to Wutai, and likely the expanded story that was set up in Remake. They have a larger involvement already established in Remake. Possibly a stop by Fort Tamblin as well, or maybe the Tiny Bronco lands outside of Fort Tamblin. Either way, I do think they're going to bring in compilation locations such as Fort Tamblin. I totally get that this portion is out of sync with all of my previous comparisons that have matched up so well. And maybe there's an opportunity here to really shake up the known path with Zack scenes to match Chapter 13 of Remakes, perhaps some more deep ground interference going on while in the Wutai area. That kind of stuff could work its way in. But either way, I know that's a deviation, but let's get back to the parallels. Chapter 14, World Exploration and the Gold Saucer, revisiting the Gold Saucer. Back to being super convincing that I'm onto something with this video. Chapter 14 in Remake was all about, you know, revisiting those areas you've already been in the game. Well, all the areas that aren't now a calzone, if you know what I'm saying. This chapter was chock full of side quests and mini-games in Remake, and I expect Rebirth will do the same. Most of the side quests completion rewards in this chapter were to get Volume 3 manuscripts for each character. Speaking of which, it may be the right time to get Aerith's manuscript to learn the Great Gospel, which would have the party returning to the Eastern Continent to visit the old man nearby the Mithril Mines for some Mithril, which I should add would be an incredible time to battle the Midgar Zalem in order to obtain that Mithril. That would be kind of throwing a hook into the how that all progresses, but that would be cool because it would be kind of like battling the Subterranean Menace side quest in Chapter 14 of Remake, which involved Behemoth Type 0, both being super bosses for this game. There was a side quest in Remake to search for chocobos, and you know, Rebirth, you could catch and breed them. That would be an awesome parallel. Maybe revisiting Wutai for Yuffie's Padoga challenge. Of course, all of the fun mini games and challenges at the Gold Saucer itself. Dio has the keystone to the Temple of Ancients, so it is time to return to the Gold Saucer. Now, it's also time for one of the original game's most memorable moments, the Gold Saucer date. And it parallels, oh yeah. Just as Remake did in Chapter 14, all of your choices will impact who goes on the date with Cloud. I expect the gondola ride to be a truly spectacular scene and a moment for the characters to express their feelings just as Remake had them do in Aerith's Garden in Chapter 14. Then Cait Sith steals the keystone and hands it over to the Turks, which will transition into the endgame. Freaking Cait Sith. Ketchi. Anyway, Chapter 15, the Temple of the Ancients. This is where the parallels sort of fall out. This is where starts the divergence. Anything I say will be kind of forcing it, whereas the rest of this video has been pretty fun and easy to line up. But I think that is the point, because I think Rebirth is going to deviate tremendously from here on out. Temple of Ancients will be a foreboding and somber as we, we know where this is going, right? And we're unsure if it's going to happen. I think the day Midgar stood still kind of gave off similar vibes. So vibes parallel a little bit. You got chasing Sephiroth, taking the fight to Sephiroth, taking the fight to Shinra. They kind of parallel a little bit. Chapter 16, Bone Village, Sleeping Forest, and Coral Valley. Now I'm starting to try and stack in events that I think this could take up a full chapter. I mean, that's going to the Bone Village. That's the northern continent for the first time. You got the Sleeping Forest, which I believe can be expanded to be a full-on dungeon type area, and then the Coral Valley to get to the Forgotten Capital. It's a whole lot of suspense and build-up to what we all know is about to happen, but will it happen? That is there's so much build up here that I think Chapter 16 is going to be so intense. Chapter 17 is the Forgotten Capital. It's time for answers to the most asked and debated questions regarding Remake. Chapter 17 in Remake was the conclusion we knew. It was the highway chase. It was everything we knew how the original game was going to end, and I think this is how everything we knew how the original game's first disc was going to end. So Chapter 17, that's that fated moment. We're going to find out what happens, whether it's, whether it is what we remember or not. Chapter 18, The Unknown Journey. I'm reserving this chapter for the finale, what comes after. Also, I expect that Zack to be the Whisperers of Rebirth, so meaning the Whisperers had a gigantic role to play in the final chapter of Remake, so I imagine Zack will also have a very large, important role to play in the final chapter of Rebirth. I would love for this one to be a somber one. I'd love for it to be a fallout, you know, seeing the characters at their emotionally just devastated, they're at their lowest, and then there's maybe that moment where the party talks to Cloud and they get this, you know, this feeling of hope, this feeling of perseverance to go on, to keep fighting, and then it ends. You know, the game just ends, you know, so you're left with this feeling of hope, you know, but you're also just completely shattered. I think that would be an awesome ending. Many fans believe that the ending will be at the Northern Crater with the weapons awakened and the party captured. It could be a better way to end it, you know, kind of like a Empire Strikes Back way to end it. My parallels certainly blur in the last 3 chapters, but I still don't think it allows for the Northern Crater segment. I mean, snowboarding would be a much better start to part 3, after allowing a few years between the games for players to process the loss and process the ending of Rebirth. And then, you know, when you open the game up with a snowboarding sequence, it won't be as jarring. But then, of course, if you're going to try and fit the Northern Crater sequence in where he hands it off, you have to also fit in snowboarding, Great Glacier, Gaia's Cliff, the Whirlwind Maze. It would all have to fit in within only a couple chapters. Seeing how I broke it down to you guys, it only starts, I mean, that's a whole lot to jam in there. But yeah, I mean, I also know and I understand that Rebirth doesn't have to mirror or parallel with Remake. It doesn't have to do that. Chapters 3, 8, 9, and 14 do not have to be side quest hubs. It doesn't have to be that way. And, you know, as George Lucas said, you know, it's like poetry. It rhymes. And hopefully I've demonstrated just how well it does rhyme with the original game's story after Midgar. And I'm not even factoring in all the crazy twists and turns that I know Rebirth will include to keep fans of the original guessing. Sort of this, you know, theme of parallels with sudden transversal lines cutting through them. What do you think? I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you to our FFTV icon, Badly Brave, and to all our FFTV party members who support us on Ko-fi and Patreon. And thank you for watching this video, for liking it, and equipping a subscription. Take care now. Bye-bye then. Mount Nebel still retains that eerie feeling too. This mountainous path with spooky, weird tipped mountains, and the iconic boss battle. Yeah, the iconic boss battle with the Materia Keeper. That was a good one. Allegory. Just remake the parallels.